Hi, this is Ben Christo from the Sisters of Mercy, and you're listening to 89 FM Radio Rock.
Heloisy Rodrigues para 89, a Rádio Rock. Eu estou aqui com Ben Christo do Sisters of Mercy. Hi Ben, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. So I want to start talking about your coming to Brazil. You guys are going to be here in September, right?
Yep.
And what is the feeling? What are the expectations?
There's always a level of excitement when we come to Brazil because the nature of the fans, extremely passionate, extremely committed, and every time that we've been there in the past, there's always a fantastic reception. So we feel excited and enthused to come back again.
And do you have any memorable moments from your visiting here?
Yeah, I remember when the first time I came there, it was particularly memorable because I had never been to that part of the world before. First of all, that was an incredible experience, and secondly, because of the reaction of the fans, I'd not seen anything like it before. It was extremely enthusiastic and loud, and we would step off the tour bus and people were screaming, and I'd never experienced anything like that before. So it's that level of enthusiasm and passion, I think, is something that I've always connected with Brazil and the shows that we've done there.
Yeah, we're very passionate. And outside of the shows, did you have any chance to explore Brazil and its culture?
A little, yes. What tends to happen with the shows is we are working, we're arriving, and there is sometimes not a lot of time to spend doing other things, particularly with arriving and flights and jet lag, and so there's not necessarily always a lot of time unless you specifically decide to perhaps come to the country a few days early or stay a few days later at the end. So most of my trips there have been purely work-based. I remember some fun times we had of going to Manifesto Bar, if you know this one. I believe that's in Sao Paulo, and also a very cool bar called Madame Bar. I think that's a very cool bar I've been to there. But these were back in the days when I used to drink, and I don't drink anymore, so at all. So those first experiences was a lot of alcohol involved, and I can't really remember everything.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things you can do here that doesn't involve alcohol.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful place with loads of history and lots of fantastic cultural significance.
Yeah. And what can fans expect from the Latin American shows, especially here in São Paulo?
If it's anything like the show that we've been doing over the last month in Europe, then, which it might not be because we like to change things, then it will be a combination of the recorded works from the recorded back catalogue and works that are new that we've written in the last 5 to 6 years. Sonically and visually, it's quite different from many other rock shows that you might see, and you're going to experience 4 very unique characters on the stage, bringing you a very special and memorable show.
That's nice. So, a lot of fans were excited to hear No Time to Cry feature in such a popular show as Wednesday. How was it for you to see the song, like almost 40 years after its release, getting this new spotlight?
I think that's fascinating, isn't it? That a song so many years later, imagine when they wrote that song and they recorded that song in 1985, imagine if they knew that 40 years in the future it would be in a huge TV show, which is one of the most significant franchises of, let's say, alternative culture that's found its way into the mainstream, all of the kind of whole like Addams Family franchise. That is amazing. And imagine telling them then, back in those days of them in the recording studio, just sitting around with some beers going, yeah, we've got an idea for a song. That's fascinating, isn't it? And it just shows that beautiful concept of an idea can go anywhere. An idea that you might just have one day in the most innocuous setting. You could just be on your walking down your street, or you could be at your boring job or whatever it is that you're doing, and suddenly that idea that you have can become something international. It can become something global that then resonates for decades after. And what a good example that is.
Yeah. And with the show reaching such a wide and diverse audience, do you think having the song in Wednesday helped you introduce the Sisters of Mercy to a new generations of fans, younger fans maybe?
I reckon so, because people will hear it and think, what's this? And there is, I think the way that people have started to consume music in the streaming and internet age is different from the way that it was consumed, say, back in 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whereby in those decades, young people would hear music because it was what was happening right then in their local scene. It was what was on the radio right then, and it was new. And you defined yourself as a young person growing up in those eras as, what is the new music that's coming out? What group am I a part of? Am I part of this group or that group? And as well as particular TV shows or radio stations, you would go to specific places like the youth club or the nightclub to hear new music as a teenager, or even the local independent record store, where you would just, certainly when I was growing up, I would go there just to see if there was anyone cool there, and was there a new record out that was on the shelves at the front. And that was one way of consuming music that was very much based on who you were at that time and who you socialized with. Whereas now, young people can hear any bit of music from any bit of history without any kind of preconception about, do I like this? Is this cool? Is this part of the group that I'm a part of? Just hear it and think, I like this, I want to find out more. Maybe not even realizing that it's from 40 years ago. Because certainly, I imagine kids in the 80s wouldn't be interested in music from the 1940s. It's just, that's archaic. It's from a different time. It's the Glenn Miller Orchestra. But now I think people are a lot more open-minded, and just, they like things because they like them, not because it's particularly cool right now or it's part of the scene I'm growing up in right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. And you joined the Sisters of Mercy in 2006, right?
Correct.
And
Well, my very first show was 2006, February the 16th.
okay. And what was it like to integrate into a band with such a legacy and such a loyal fan base?
A little intimidating to start with. But what I began to discover, and what I think is still quite fascinating, is that there's almost 2 or 3 definitively different eras of this band. There is the inception of the band through to, let's say, the first record. Then there's the first record through to, let's say, the early 90s. Then there's the early 90s through to when I joined. And then there's when I joined to the present. So there's almost like 4 different eras or epochs of the band that, when people come to the show, maybe they have a favorite. Maybe they particularly prefer a certain era of the band. And when I came to the band, there'd already been these different eras that had occurred. And I came with a level of expectation that was quite different to what I met when I joined the band. So my understanding of the band was more of that second era, sort of 1985 through to 93. That was the material I had that I'd grown up on. And then the band that I came in contact with in 2006 was very different in many ways from my concept of what the band was. So adjusting to that was quite interesting. But what I really liked was that from the beginning, I was told that I was not a session guitarist. I was now the guitarist of this band. And I was asked to bring my identity to help fashion what the band, who the band were, what the band was in 2006.
And what was your relationship with the music and history of the band before joining? Were you a fan?
I was a fan. I would say they were in my top 20 or 30 bands. They weren't my favorite band. I didn't know all the albums back to back. I'd got one record when I was 14 that I'd listened to a lot. Then in my sort of late teens, early 20s, I'd picked up another record, had a greatest hits. There were certain songs that I absolutely adored and would put on compilations and suggest to friends. There were certain songs that would often come up on dance floors of nightclubs when I was a teenager, and always really enjoyed them. But I didn't thoroughly know the back catalogue, and I hadn't studied the history of the band, who was in it then, who was in it at this point. I even for some time thought the band was German. Possibly because there was a German member at one point. So I loved certain songs of the band, and I admired the band, and I recognized the importance of the band. I wasn't a devout fan of the band.
Okay. And even though the band hasn't released a studio album in over 3 decades, it still has a very strong fan base. In your opinion, what's the secret to stay relevant for so long?
I think the source material from the initial era of the band is iconic in terms of the sonic and the visual impact that it's had on a lot of other bands going into the 90s and 2000s who have emulated the band. So I think that influence that the source material had has been extremely important. Lots of bands who have gone on to become huge bands have cited the Sisters of Mercy as a clear influence. Nine Inch Nails, System of a Down, to name a few. And that was always very strange for me, because it meant that a lot of the bands that I grew up listening to, who were my heroes, I'm now in a band with their hero.
Yeah.
And it really was exciting for me, because I've met a lot of my heroes because of my association with the Sisters of Mercy. System of a Down is an example of me meeting the singer of that band, because he likes Sisters of Mercy, and there's a whole bunch of other examples of that kind of connection. So I think the source material is so good. I think also the lyrics of the songs have always been very enigmatic and allowed people to invest themselves into the music. The lyrics paint a very vivid picture, and yet it remains mysterious. It remains enigmatic. And I think that's a huge strength when it comes to songwriting, and a huge strength of Andrew's lyrics. Also, Andrew has consistently retained a mysterious personality, a mysterious persona. If you look back to the 1980s, when Andrew was making these videos, whereas most other acts at that time, the lead singer of the video would be like, "Hey, look at me, I'm awesome, have me in the camera all the time." Andrew's very distant. He's disappearing behind things. He's retreating from the camera. He is more of a evasive presence in like these videos. Yeah, and if you watch things again like Dominion and Lucretia, you'll see he's actively stepping away and behind things to obscure himself from the camera. Also, throughout the years of social media, Andrew has never had a social media presence, whereas a lot of his peers have gone on to have these personal pages, which sometimes can be a little, let's say, it can undo some of the mystery of a personality that you've perhaps grown up as an icon. Suddenly they're just expressing that they're like you. They've gone to the grocery store. Here's a post of me. I've bought these new strawberries. It's like, but I thought you were a mysterious god. So I think Andrew's retained that sense of mystery. Yeah, exactly. What are you doing? You can't be like me. He's retained that level of enigma and mystery, which I think has kept people engaged with the band. So source material really good, very catchy and memorable tunes, and enigmatic yet very vivid lyrics, I think has kept people connected.
So as you're talking about the songwriting, I want to know, how does the songwriting process work? Is this like collaborative work, or is just mostly driven by Andrew?
It's been a combination of things. I would say there were perhaps 2 or 3 definitive ways that a song has been written, certainly when I've been in the writing process. Either it's been from scratch in the room, Andrew would say, let's put Dr. Avalanche, the drum machine, on at a certain speed and just start jamming. And we'll just start jamming ideas. And he'll articulate some of his ideas vocally, and then I will express them on the fretboard of the guitar, or the other guitarist will do the same. So that's one way, and then we build something up from there. Another way is that Andrew or I or any other of the band members during the writing process would bring a half-formed song into the room and say, this is an idea I've got. And then the three of us would work on pulling it apart, changing it, choosing the best bits, adding other bits. And then another, and maybe the final process, was when Andrew would have a title or a lyric already, and he would bring that to the room. He may or may not have some sort of musical idea for it, but then we would flesh it out properly with the instruments. And there's one particular song called Eyes of Caligula, which he, I believe, has had the lyrics since the 80s, but never put it to a piece of music until 2021. So, and I was part of that process. So that was a huge honor for me to know that he'd held on to those lyrics for so long. And it was only when we were working together that he felt he found a musical home for them.
Well, that must be nice. And you mentioned Dr. Avalanche. So what is like to working with this, both on stage and in the creative process?
On stage, it's good in the sense that we've got a very reliable member of the band who's never going to change anything. It also means that we never fall into the trap that some bands can do of accidentally slowing down or speeding up the songs live, because your perception of of the speed of a song when you're playing it is quite different, can be quite different from what the audience perceives. And we've all been and seen bands and we've thought, oh God, they're playing too fast and it's chaotic, or it's really slow and dragging. Whereas because we're playing to a metronome, a machine, we can decide what we want the speed of the song to be. We can change it from the original, but we've made the decision in advance for it to be that speed. And that's a really important aspect of ensuring that the music comes across in the way that we want it to. You don't have the flexibility of going off on one and having a jam so much, but that's fine. That's not really what this band has been about. And it also gives us the flexibility on top of the drum machine to change things if we want to, whilst the stability of the song is still intact due to the doctor.
And when you play the classic songs, do you try to keep them as close as the originals, or do you like to add your own touch?
Well, I think what we do is a mixture of both of those things. So sometimes we can change the arrangements of the songs whilst we retain the aesthetic. So there are certain songs, for example, Temple of Love, the actual recorded version is very long. And when you listen to it on the record, you're able to build and drop because of all the different levels of things you can bring into the recording. You can bring an infinite amount of things in to the production of the recording. But when you're playing live, there's only four of us on the stage. We can't keep bringing more things in. So songs like that we've shortened in order to ensure that it's still a palatable length whilst retaining the most important aesthetic elements of the song in the way that we perform it. And it's quite interesting, that one, because when we start playing it, we start from the middle of the song, which means you still get verses and choruses and everything you want, but it's initially unfamiliar to the audience because it starts in a different way. And then there's that slow recognition from the fans where you look around and, oh my God, it's Temple of Love, how exciting. It's a different sort of experience than if you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, here's the song, and everyone goes, oh, I love this song. So yeah, I think aesthetically we like to keep it the same. Arrangement wise, we like to change things.
All right. And is there a song in the set list that you feel has gained a new energy since you joined the band?
Oh, okay. Well, think carefully about that, because the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I'm just thinking, which song would that be? Well, we started in November 2023, October 2023. A guitarist called Kai joined the band, and Kai brought a lot of new ideas and energy that have refreshed some of the songs in a really exciting way, particularly through Kai's vocal style. And Kai and I have worked very closely on singing together, getting the harmonies right. And now I think there are certain songs where I feel there's been a palpable change in the energy to those songs. Songs like Giving Ground, which was a sisterhood song, which was the album that they did as a sort of side project between First and Last and Floodland, so called Giving Ground, which to me, when I used to play it with the band, I always felt like it was just okay. But then Kai really studied it and we reworked it, and I really feel excited about playing that song now. So that's a good example, and lots of cool vocal changes and augmentations that we've worked on together in things like Dominion and Lucretia. So yeah, there's definitely a number of songs that would fit that bill.
Yeah, so I imagine that joining such iconic band must have brought personal and artistic growth. So what have you learned since you joined it? Has anything changed in your playing style?
Oh, very much. When I first came to the band, I was a guitarist who wanted to play all the time, and I felt as in every song I have to play all the way through, otherwise I'm not playing. Whereas I was taught by the band that actually having restraint and leaving space is much more effective than just playing all the time. Example being that if you're on stage and you're playing like a 3-note part, that's much more effective to be able to stand there and look out to the audience and play these 3 notes rather than with your guitar playing loads and loads of notes, staring at the fretboard, where you can't really project your personality and the song's personality as you can with a simpler part played effectively. So that was a really important lesson. Also, when it comes to songwriting, can you make 3 or 4 notes really matter so that people engage with it rather than let's have a million ideas because then we're doing stuff all the time, then it must be good because we've done so much, it must be good. So the band taught me that, and that songwriting sensibility not only helped me write songs with the Sisters of Mercy, but also for the other bands that I've performed in over the years and written for over the years. So the idea of can you make 3 or 4 notes really matter, then you're onto something.
Right. And is there a song that is especially meaningful for you to play live?
Yes, I think Eyes of Caligula again for me is a special one because of the story I told you earlier. And there was it's quite a slow and emotional song as well. So I think that adds to the sense of connection. There's some vivid memories on the tour that we just did of playing it, and the stage that we were playing on was overlooking the river, the Danube, and seeing the lights reflect on the water and playing a song was such a privilege. And to think, wow, this is something that I've written and now I'm playing it thousands of miles from home next to this river at night. Wow, that's amazing. What an honor. So that's very special. And there are also other songs like Marianne and Alice and I Was Wrong that I used to listen to as a teenager walking to school, and I still have moments where I'm performing those on stage and I think this is unbelievable. Imagine telling me as a child that I could ever do this, not only play these songs with the band, but play the songs with the band in Brazil, in Australia, in Switzerland, whatever it is. What an amazing thing to happen. How did I get here?
And to finish, what message would you like to leave for the Brazilian fans who will see you on this new tour?
Thank you so much, obrigado, for being so supportive to us for so many years, and the enthusiasm and the passion that you show to us is extremely valued, and it is very, very important to us that we are able to bring you something special and that you ask us to come back so many times.
Well, that was it. Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for your time.
89, a Rádio Rock.